At night Naruto couldn't sleep, his mind filled with so much thoughts that it kept his eyes from closing and rest. He just laid there and stared at the ceiling, and the next things he knew, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't like he could get any sleep anyway, so Naruto put on his shirt, a little hard because he was getting familiar with working with one hand only, but Naruto still managed to put both of his feet into his pants and tied the kunai porch around his legs, with another shuriken porch on behind him on his belt. Tying the Konoha's forehead protector at the back of his head, Naruto walked to the door of his apartment and walked outside, heading to training ground number 3 to have a morning workouts. It didn't take long for Naruto to arrive at the memorable place, the training ground where Team 7 was formed, and the place Kakashi taught them the first lesson, one of the most important rules of his life. Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. The training ground held so many memories, so maybe he should ask Sasuke and Sakura about having one last lesson with Kakashi before he became the Rakudame of Konoha, to let him know how much Team 7 had grown after reuniting with each other. Suddenly Naruto heard the very familiar twang of a bowstring and the following thud of an arrow hitting its target. He followed the sound until she reached a clearing with 3 wooden logs, the same place he fought Kakashi for the first time. There he found a little girl about the age of 10 or 11 years old, with a very family auburn hair firing arrows at a target around 100 yards away. Even when Naruto knew very little about bow and arrows, he was slightly awed at the girl's skill with a bow. The speed and accuracy she was shooting at was better than any shinobi throwing their weapons. That girl looked oddly familiar though. You know that I may shoot you down right there, Uzumaki, the girl suddenly spoke up when Naruto landed on top of a tree. The voice was much more childlike, but it was the same kind of tone that goddess of the moon used to talk to him yesterday. Artemis? Naruto asked, jumping down to the ground about a few feet away from the goddess, then walked toward her very carefully so that she would know he don't have any weird intent. Wow, you're a kid, what happened? Kurama was in action again to translate everything for Naruto. The only one he knew could change their age like that was Tsunade, but she was a 50-year-old lady who had problem with gamble. He doubted that she and Artemis shared the same interest in wager. Us gods can change our appearance as will, this is the age I usually look like, she said and shot another arrow, saying that calmly. Huntresses? Like Zo? Yes, like Zo, she nodded her head before saying, I could appear as a grown woman like yesterday, or a blazing fire, or anything else I want, but this is what I prefer. This is the average age of my hunters and all young maidens for whom I am patron before they go astray. Go astray. Grow up. Become smitten with boys. Become silly, preoccupied, insecure. Forget themselves. Oh, you mean fallen in love? Naruto suddenly realized with a large smile, his hand hitting his other palm. Artemis's left eyes twitched, turning around she returned to her training, shooting arrows straight to the middle wooden log. I rather not talk about it. She used that sentence to end their conversation, but Naruto's still standing there right behind her. Then, the blonde reached his hand into his shuriken porch and pulled out a half-dozen of shurikens. With just a simple throwing move, all 6 shuriken left his hand and flew straight forward toward the middle wooden log, which was filled with silver arrows. But unlike Artemis, who hit the wooden surface right away, Naruto's shuriken splitted 6 arrows of Artemis in half before their blades striking into the log. Artemis instantly turned around, glaring at him. You're welcome, his chuckling then stopped. Artemis, my mom and dad. Do they have any more children other than me? Kurama had filled him in that gods was immortal, and his so-called godly parent had lived for more than 3,000 years as husband and wife, so it wouldn't be a surprise if they had any more children than him. Artemis looked at Naruto for a moment, she didn't know if she should tell him the truth or not, that her father was basically the biggest man whore ever and had countless affairs. Even the goddess standing in front of him, the goddess who was reading books in a tent not too far away, were all his half-sisters. But since he asked Zeus's children with Hera, she would answer the things he wanted. Hebe is the Greek goddess of youth and also the former cupbearer of the gods back at the old day Artemis started. Then Enyo was a goddess of war and destruction. Wait, isn't Athena the goddess of war? Naruto asked, cutting Artemis off her speech. Athena is the Olympians' goddess of war and wisdom, while Enyo was a minor goddess of war. She told him Athena has a more important role than Enyo, but it's kind of opposite in Roman. She wanted to pull out the knife and gut Naruto right there for making that totally confused face. Imagine your leader Tsunade and your shinobi council. So why didn't you just say so? Artemis nearly face-palmed, it seemed that she had figured it out his problem. This Whisker Cheeks idiot wasn't as stupid as she thought, quite opposite actually, it just that he was relatively naive, simple, and slow to understand principle or situations, often requiring an oversimplified analogy in order to grasp what was being explained to him. In short, to Artemis, a simple-minded idiot boy. Please continue. Okay then. Next is Enyo, the goddess of war and destruction. Can't say I will get along with her if we ever met, so the boy wasn't like war, Artemis mused, fair enough since he already went through war himself. The goddess of the moon already figured it out what he was going to say when she mentions Ares. Alethea, the goddess of childbirth. Artemis continued, and then Hephaestus, the Olympians, god of forges, fire, technology, craftsmen, sculptors, volcanoes, and blacksmiths. Wow, that is a lot. Some of us Olympians have more than one domains, like me. Other than the goddess of the hunt and moon, I'm also the goddess of the chastity, animals, and the wilderness. Okay, alright, is there anyone else? Yes, Ares. Artemis said that with a very distasteful tone, making Naruto raised an eyebrow. Or Olympians, god of war. That's it. Yes, your eldest brother is mortal's least favorite. Naruto nodded. Unlike Athena, who is the goddess of wisdom, making her somewhat a goddess of war of justice, your brother is the complete warmonger, battle maniac and bloodthirsty. Typical man. Damn. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Why do I have a feeling that he is going to challenge me for a fight? Probably, was all Artemis said before returning to what she was doing. He got a big family, was all Naruto thought in his head. He got a big family waiting for him at this place, Olympus. Well, most of them might not as pretty as he thought, like Ares or Enyo. They are his family, the family he always wished for when he was young. Then suddenly, after 30 minutes of neither party said any words to each other and focused on their morning workouts, Naruto's stomach suddenly grumbled like thunder, earning the attention of Artemis, who looked at him as if she was looking at a strange creature. Sorry about that. Naruto laughed sheepishly. You never stop to amaze me. Artemis sighed, shaking her head. Just when I thought you're done showing yourself, once again you come back and show a new side of you. It is because I am awesome, right? He grinned brightly, which really reminded her of Apollo's upbeat attitude. Hopefully he would never turn out like her childish brother. His stomach rumbled once again. Ugh, I have enough of your hungry. As she snapped her finger, and in a flash of light, a set of picnic table and chair appeared from thin air beside Naruto. Surprise him. Wow, how can you do that? Godly power. Artemis replied shortly. Now sit down and I will find you something to eat. You know how to cook? Naruto asked, sat down while looking at Artemis in surprise. What do you really mean when you ask that question? Artemis asked, glaring at Naruto slightly, who just laughed sheepishly. Of course I know how to cook, but some boy like you don't deserve to taste my cooking, let alone eat it. She said that with a smirk. Well, then how? But Naruto was silenced for the second time because Artemis clicked her fingers once again and food suddenly filled the entire table, various kinds of foods, some Naruto never tasted or even saw in his life. Consider this an apology for how I acted yesterday, said Artemis, sat down the chair opposite from Naruto. I attacked you for something nonsense, and my behavior was like of an immature little girl. Well, you're a little girl, right? I mean, you can continue. Naruto was about to tell a joke, but stopped himself because Artemis looked up and glared at him like he wanted to eat him alive or put an arrow through his head. As I was saying before being rudely interrupted, Artemis said, voice full of sarcasm, please consider this simple breakfast as the redemption for my actions. It wasn't like I was holding something against you, Naruto grinned, but thank for the meal anyway. He then picked up the chopstick and dug in. But after the first bite was in his mouth, Naruto looked at Artemis and asked, you don't eat? Gods don't eat, we live from the mortals' faith in our domains. Artemis then summoned a bowl of small cubes and put a piece in her mouth. But we can eat this, ambrosia, the food eaten by gods, or drink this, nectar, the drink consumed by the gods. She then summoned a cup filled with strange color liquor inside. Can I have some? He asked, wondering how the food and drink of gods taste like. Sure, have some. Artemis gave it to Naruto, who took it and threw it into his mouth. But since you're mortal, unless you want your blood to be turned to fire and bones to sand, then sure, have as much as you like. Naruto instantly spitted it out of his mouth, horrified. What the hell? He screamed in Japanese, and even though Artemis couldn't understand, he knew he was cursing and couldn't help but laugh. Naruto looked at the laughing little girl, pouting before turning down and returned to the normal foods. Right about the time I thought you're nice enough, he said, putting the food into his mouth. Hey Artemis, what? Can you summon ramen? Why is that food? It unhealthy and. Please, it's my favorite food, he begged with hand in front of him. If he still had his right hand, then his hands would clap together to me. It's the food of the gods, not that dangerous. Cookies. He pointed to the bowl of ambrosia, which Artemis was pouring the nectar inside, and ate it from a spoon. Okay, go on. Artemis groaned and summoned the food he wanted. I did Akamasu? He shouted and dug in. Not even 10 seconds later. Done, can I have some more? He asked, grinning brightly, and put the bowl down, much to the shock of the goddess of the hunt. What in the Hades, what is wrong with you? She asked before shaking her head with her hands massaging her forehead. Forget that, here, just eat. She replaced the entire table with bowl and bowl of ramen, making Naruto grin. Thank you. The rest of Naruto's breakfast ended in just 10 minutes, as he finished 10 bowls of ramen in just a few seconds. Really surprised Artemis. Artemis had never seen a boy like him before, who had proved to her that he was much more than he appeared to be. Sure, he was simple-minded, disrespectful and sometimes full of himself, but he had amazing skills in fighting and a very great mind for strategy, as Athena had commented it when they watched Naruto and his friend fought against Kagaya. She hated to admit it, but she would have to fight her hardest if she wanted to keep up with a Naruto who only fought with just one arm, who easily defeated her yesterday, and actually show enough skills with just that to defeat her 3,000 years of experience. Or maybe she was blinded with anger and he defeated her easily using that at his advantage. That must be it, Artemis mused to herself. It was her anger that clouded her judgment and made her to lose to him. Be fought on the equal ground against a primordial being, remember? Artemis shivered, she could hear those words from the deepest part of her mind. The even ninja of this village was able to keep up with Zoe and could kill her in a close combat battle by the time her arrows ran out yesterday. She now know why the older gods and goddesses never told them about this world. Hey Artemis, Naruto suddenly spoke up, clicking his fingers in front of her face to draw the goddess of the moon back to the ground, her mind probably like the moon going somewhere above the sky, he mused. Oh sorry, what do you want to say again? She blinked and looked at him. I want your help today Artemis he said, I want to find out the truth about Sarutobi Oji-chan's lie about me to my parent but wasn't he already dead? Artemis crossed her arms on her chest sure gods like us can go to the underworld if the owner allow, but your world's world of afterlife is very different than ours, there is no guarantee that we can enter it the same way. I don't need you to take me to the underworld, hell or heaven, whatever it is he shook his head, but I heard from Kurama that you have the ability to track one down, even if they are halfway around the world, I want you to help me find this man, Orochimaru, and he is the key to all my questions. Find another man, this mission can't get worse, Artemis wanted to slap herself alright I will help you, but as soon as you got your answer you will come with us alright. If that satisfy me Naruto nodded. Line break. It's nice to see you two so friendly this morning, what happened? The goddess of wisdom asked Artemis, sitting down the picnic table, the same spot Naruto had been sitting a few hours ago to talk to her half-sister. The blonde shinobi was standing in the water while punching and kicking his feet around, trying to get used to fight with his left arm, since now he had to fight with just one hand for some time. We started off in the wrong foot Artemis nodded, but at least he didn't do anything wrong yet. At least until now. So you two talk? Athena asked before bringing out a book. Just yesterday, the two was head-to-head against each other and Naruto had absolute problem with the opposite gender after all. And treat him breakfast as an apology for action tomorrow. Did he talk anything about coming with us? Yes, but he needs to find out the truth about him being here without his parent knowing. He need me to help him find this man, name Orochimaru. Athena raised an eyebrow at the something about this man could help him talk to Hiruzen. Well, Shinobi has plenty ninjutsu and powers that we still don't know anything about. Artemis couldn't help but agree. You two talk. Can we just talk about something else? 7 o'clock, the two goddesses and Huntress stood in front of the main gate of Konoha behind Team 7, the same team of mortal fought against a woman who was as strong as the primordial gods. Naruto and Sasuke had told Tsunade about the idea of finding Orochimaru to search for the information he wanted, and since Sakura was there as well, Naruto couldn't help but ask the last member of Team 7 to go with them to make their team a whole again in this mission. Tsunade-sama is nearly done with the prosthetic hands make from Hashirama-sama's cells. Sakura told her teammate I guess when we come back after this mission you two will have your hands back. Great Naruto grinned. At least he wouldn't have to learn to do the simplest kind of things with just one hand for the rest of his life. Like fighting with both arms were better than with just one. I don't think I can receive it anytime soon Sasuke suddenly spoke up. What do you mean? Sakura asked while Naruto remained silent, he knew his friend would bring up the subject and told it to Sakura. I need to see it for myself. How the world looks Sasuke told her. What Sakura shuddered, looking down. Artemis's eyes twitched a little, did that girl in love with that black hair boy? In her opinion, that was the worst possibility that could happen to any girls, no matter what worlds they were. Sakura was a strong young woman, the fight with Kagaya clearly showed that and would be a fine addition to her hunt. Maybe she could ask the young pink-hair lady to join her hunt after this, since it looked like the black-haired boy was going to leave her. Before Sakura can say anything further, Kakashi Haddock appeared with his hands in his pocket. So, the team is all here Kakashi said with his usual tone he greeted Team 7 with an eye smile, before turning to the goddesses and Huntress, it's my pleasure to see two goddess in person, I'm Kakashi Haddock, and the Rakudame Hokage of this village he then added, I was also the sensei of Team 7. Kakashi sensei Naruto gasped in surprise what are you doing here? I thought you're. Now don't worry, the masked man smiled when I heard that you three are about to head out to find Orochimaru, I couldn't help but come here as soon as I can. As soon as you can? Naruto asked, slightly smirking so there is no black cat on the street and helping old lady this time. It was 2 hours ago that I walked out of the Hokage's office Naruto, and Sakura groaned while Sasuke just sighed relax, I'm just kidding. Great Team 7 are all here for our last mission, Naruto grinned brightly before turning to the immortal group behind him, I think it's time to go ladies he spoke in English. Okay, but first Artemis walked to the group can anyone tell me how is this Orochimaru looks like? Snake face, evil eyes. Naruto described very simple, really pale skin, look like someone already dead. Those who can speak English looked at him. What? It's the truth. Kakashi, do you have a picture of Orochimaru or anything that can show Artemis about him? Athena asked the new Hokage of Konoha. Oh, Tsunade-sama gave this to me. Kakashi pulled out from his shirt pocket a picture and gave it to Athena, who could see a younger Tsunade and a man with long spiky white hair and another one with long black hair and pale skin. Naruto was right, his skin was really pale and looked like someone already dead. I take that this man is Orochimaru. Athena nodded her head before giving it to Artemis, pointing the pale skin man in the picture. Then, she closed her eyes and not a moment later the shinobi could hear the sound of lot of animals were approaching them, all gasped in shock when hundreds and hundreds of various kinds of animals instantly present in front of Artemis, birds gathered around the area and there were still more to come. Foxes, wolves, wild cats, even creature like bugs, butterflies and snails were present and in front of the goddess of the hunt. Damn, Naruto said in amazement. She probably a goddess. Naruto commented while looking at Artemis, who was showing the animals the picture of Orochimaru and the other Sannin. Alright, split up and find this man for me, also tell your friends and the other creatures as well, she said loudly, and instantly, the animals all bowed to Artemis before parting away, disappeared as fast as they appeared. Now we wait. Just in case they can find him, Sasuke spoke up, we should head to one of Orochimaru's old hideouts at Itagakure, in case he decided to return there. Alright, Kakashi nodded his head while Athena translating everything back to Artemis. Let's go team, they all nodded, and the shinobi shot up, moving fast on top of the tree, while the goddess of the mood and her lieutenant ran below them on the ground. Athena transformed herself into an owl and flew up, flying on the sky. They traveled for 3 hours at top speed. Neither parties talked to each other, but talked among themselves, as Athena and Artemis were conversation through telepathy about Elemental Nation and what Athena had found out about this world. Zoe was keeping a close eyes on everything around her, taking in every details of the incredible wilderness of Elemental Nations. Neither huntress had seen such fine nature like this before. Then suddenly, when they about to arrive at the border between Land of Fire and the Land of Sound, Artemis shouted, "Wait." Everyone stopped and the shinobi got down to the ground. The stormy grey owl flew down and transformed back to Athena. "Did you find him, mistress?" Zoe asked, the same question all wanted to ask her. Just wait a second. After saying that, the auburn-haired goddess put her hand on the ground and stayed silent for a little before standing up again. "Found him." "What? Just like that?" Naruto asked. "Surprise, I mean, shouldn't one of the animals return to you and tell you wherever Orochimaru is?" "I can communicate with animals even from far distance." Artemis shook her head. "One of them found Orochimaru and 3 more shinobi at the underground base about 3 miles from here. I know that place. Orochimaru returned there to gather all of his research with the rest of Taka." Sasuke nodded his head at Naruto, and he was wondering where his short-time teammate was. "His old team," Naruto explained. "I will lead the way," the auburn-haired goddess said before heading toward the direction the animals were leading her as fast as she could while everyone following closely behind. It didn't take long for them to arrive at their destination, a small area surrounded with trees and rocks, hard to find Orochimaru's headquarters, if not for Artemis leading them. The first impression about Orochimaru's headquarters was an underground basement with a secret door hid really well, but soon found by Zoe. "Naruto, wait," Sakura shouted when suddenly, Naruto launched himself forward and rushed toward the secret door of Orochimaru's hideout without any stopping. However, before he could get in, Naruto was bounced back by an invisible barrier. Interesting. Athena got next to Naruto, bringing her hand out to touch the invisible barrier. "Of course, Orochimaru will put something like this to protect his base." Kakashi nodded his head before turning to his team. "This is a very..." But before he could say anything more, Naruto, who just took a few seconds to gather natural energy, with his left hand, punched the barrier with so much raw strength that the collision shook the entire area and shocked everyone, completely shattered Orochimaru's protection with his physical power alone. "Powerful barrier." Kakashi finished his sentence, while the barrier collapsing in front of them. Sasuke just sighed. "Idiot," Sakura shouted and punched Naruto upside down on his head, actually held back a lot of her strength in order to not seriously hurt him. Now he is going to think someone is attacking him. "Hey, this is faster than waiting for Orochimaru to come out or us unseal the barrier," Naruto cried out while holding his head in pain. "Typical, do first think second," Athena commented. "Blindly charge into battlefield like that can get you killed sometime. So you have any other ideas to get in? It's not like we are in good term with Orochimaru and Taka, well, other than Sasuke." "I had plans," Athena said blankly, "but you ruined it. Thank you very much." A guy is trying to find the truth here." Athena only shook her head and followed the other inside, with Naruto opened the door for all of them. Naruto Kakashi was the last one, standing at the door and looked at Naruto. "Can I have a few words with you?" "Of course, sensei," he nodded. "I know that you're very worried about the upcoming meeting with the Sandaime," the Rakudame Hokage said, "but you need to calm down. Losing your cool and risking everyone's life like that is not you at all." "Sensei." Artemis-sama said Orochimaru inside. A goddess said Orochimaru is inside this place then mean he is in here. Kakashi gave him an eyes smile. He is not going anywhere and more friendly than before. I believe that he will help you summon Sandaime-sama. So takes a deep breath and calm down. But that Kakashi walked inside, leaving Naruto with himself outside of the underground basement. The blonde sighed, he shouldn't act like that. Kakashi was right, he needed to calm down and think more carefully about the situation. He had to make sure he was calm and clear-minded when talking with the man who currently the reason for his childhood without his family. Taking a deep breath, Naruto walked in. But Naruto were 3 steps inside. Sasuke-kun. The squeak could be heard, and a girl with red hair and glasses launched herself forward towards Sasuke, who had foreseen it and replaced himself with Sakura. To say the student of Tsunade Senju was unpleased was an understatement. Her eyes twitched when Karen crashed into her with a redhead's arms wrapped tightly around her head, which she thought should be Sasuke's. Gripping her hand into a fist tightly, Sakura then crooked it back and punched Karen away from her, sending Naruto's human-side relative across the underground basement and crashed into a wall. This is the worst. Zo commented about what the redhead just do. I thought you only have problem with boys, Naruto asked, looking at the lieutenant of Artemis, not the girls. I don't have problem with love-struck girls, Zo said emotionlessly. I pity them. Blindly got into something that only hurt them later on. Well, they can do much better than following behind. Boy, Artemis's hunt was a group of girls, and Naruto already figured out why Artemis formed said hunt in the first place, as well as their opinion about the opposite sex. Karen got out of the wall. Sakura punched her through with the last 2 shinobi of Team Kata, Suigetsu and Jugo right behind her. My, Sasuke, Suigetsu said with a mouthful of shark teeth, it's just 2 days and you're already here with a hero. He then looked at Naruto. You're here to capture us or something? Of course not, idiot. Sasuke-kun is here to visit me and later bring him back to the village. She then shot to Sasuke and wrapped her arms around his left arm, leaning her head slightly on his shoulder. Isn't that right, Sasuke-kun? Those women behind them, Jugo spoke up with his usual calm tone. They're not normal, Suigetsu, and Karen looked at him as if he was crazy, while the 3 immortal beings just looked at the orange-haired man in a little surprise. Up to this time they shouldn't feel any surprise from what the shinobi can do anymore. They're my friends, Naruto said before looking around. Can you two lead me to where Orochimaru is? I got a favor to ask him. There is no need for that. A cold and chilling voice could be heard as Orochimaru made himself present to everyone, wearing the same attire he wore. The legendary Sannin of Konoha walked out from a secret tunnel with a smile. You 4, especially the Hokage and Sasuke-kun, are the last person I expected to visit this place. He then turned his eyes slightly to the immortal group and bring some unfamiliar women with you too. Good to see you too, Orochimaru. Kakashi sighed. So can I ask why you are here? The snake Sannin asked. Not here to bring me back to the village and commit my crime. I hope. We need you to help Naruto talk to the Sandaime-sama, Sasuke informed, and Orochimaru was a little surprised at this. There is something he needs to ask. Then you perfectly know what jutsu is need to summon him, as well as the requirement, the Sannin said calmly. Lucky for you that, Naruto. I have one here with me. Orochimaru then turned around and walked ahead. Please follow me. Oh right, but let me warn you, if you intend to use a human's life to summon the Sandaime, I will make sure that you have a few scars that can never heal. Naruto quickly followed right behind Orochimaru, saying that and made the snake eyes man stopped. If using a human is the only choice for the sacrifice, will you still do it, Naruto? The blonde was a little taken aback by that question. He looked down a little before quickly turning his eyes back to Orochimaru. I will find another way. I just want to ask Oji-chan directly. Naruto told him if there is no other choice, I will find a different way to find out the truth. Very well then. They all head to a wide room of Orochimaru's underground basement, where the room was being lighted up by multi-candles inside of the snake's mouth, which were opened wide on the wall. Athena could clearly see the place was some kind of laboratory in a way, with multi-strange device and documents on the papers, with lots of scroll and some books as well. And in the middle of the room there is a tank filled with liquid and inside was. Isn't that Zetsu's clones? Naruto asked, surprised. I thought they was all disintegrating. Took me a while to keep him alive, but he is not the original one from Zetsu army. Orochimaru smirked. He is the second one, and the most stable one. The original and the first clone already crumble away before I could stable them. He cloned that man from original man. Athena asked Naruto quietly, as far as she concerned their origin shouldn't be known by too many people. Athena was talking with Naruto while looking at the pale man with spikes on his body floating inside the tank filled with water. Taka was helping Orochimaru drank the liquid away to take Zetsu outside. Indeed he was. Naruto scratched his chin. Your worlds doesn't have cloning. Artemis and Zo turned to hear their conversation in interest. Cloning isn't an unfamiliar term to our world, but clone a human being was banned right after the idea was given. It was wrong, simply inhuman, but we can clone animals or an organ to replace the damaged organ. Wow, I think I can understand that. Naruto nodded his head. I don't think my world have any rule forbid us from cloning, but I don't think anyone other than Orochimaru and Kabuto ever done this. He then made a clone of himself appeared next to him with one hand seal, surprised the immortal group when a perfect replica of Naruto appeared. We also have a jutsu that allow us to create copies ourselves, called Kage Bushin no Jutsu. He dispelled the clone, who grinned at the immortal group before disappearing. These clones are just real as I am because I distributed my chakra among every clone, giving each clone an equal fraction of my overall power. Then that mean you split this chakra energy in half and give it to each clone, right? Athena's head perked up with interest. She knew what was chakra from the book she read at Olympus, given by her father. Then the more clones you make the more exhausted you are. Yeah, kind of. Naruto nodded. It was particularly true, but Naruto was a different case. He never felt tired before when summoned hundreds of clones. The preparation is ready, Orochimaru said, drawing everyone's attention. Zetsu, still breathing but was just barely, was lying on the ground in front of them. I'm sorry because this is one of the first jutsus you have to see, Naruto told the immortal group. Orochimaru then opened the scroll contained the Sandame's DNA he got long ago and put it on the ground and put his hand on it, activating the jutsu. Once the scroll was activated, the marks inside spread out in the form of a special seal with Zetsu, the living sacrifice in the center. Then dust and ash encased the Zetsu's body before slowly forming itself into an old man wearing black battle attire with the Konoha's forehead protector on top of his head. What was that? Artemis asked. Did he just summon the dead people? Naruto said in order to make this technique work he needs a DNA sample and a sacrifice, a vessel for the soul of the person he wants to reincarnate. Now Athena and the other immortal understood why Naruto was so against the idea of using a human's being. To them, Zetsu was nothing but human, and the goddesses couldn't feel any human from them. The Sandame then looked around, realizing himself was at the living world once again. He then turned his eyes to the only person in the room he knew was there and could perform this technique. Orochimaru, the Sandame said before looking around. He could see that every member of Team 7 was here as well. What is going on here? Why did you summon me this time? For Orochimaru, Naruto Uzumaki wanted to ask you a question, and who am I to refuse the request of the hero of the Shinobi War? Orochimaru chuckled before turning around. I will leave you guys two alone. With it the Sannin worked out of the room with Jugo and Sujetsu pulling Karen behind them, who was screaming about not leaving Sasuke's side. We will let you here too, Naruto Kakashi said and hurried outside with the rest of Team 7. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei. Now that we are alone, the Sandame turned to Naruto and said kindly, Naruto-kun, what do you want to ask me? If the question wasn't very important, Naruto would never go to Orochimaru to ask for help from a forbidden jutsu to have a direct answer from him. He got a feeling that he knew what Naruto was going to ask, but he didn't think that the blonde could find out after all these years. Oji-chan, do you know who they are? Naruto asked, stepping aside a little and motioned his hand to Artemis and Athene, the two Olympians goddesses. They are Athena, Olympians goddess of war and wisdom, and Artemis, Olympians goddess of the moon and hunt. Sarutobi widened his eyes in shock before his expression returned to normal, instantly letting Naruto know that the old man knew more than he appeared to be. So you find out, Naruto-kun, Sarutobi said calmly, his eyes not leaving Naruto. Your parent finally finds out the truth. But why, Jai-chan? Naruto asked. He could barely believe all of that was true. Why did you not give me to my parent when they came back to find me? Naruto-kun, not just because you're the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, you're also the son of Zeus and Hera, the royal couple of Mount Olympus, the god's realm. Naruto stayed silent in order to let the Sandame explain. The great Toad Sage had foretold that the child of the prophecy would be a student of Jiraiya that would bring a great revolution to the world of the ninja. Jiraiya's actions would determine if this revolution would be for the world's salvation or the world's destruction. You, Naruto-kun, is one of the children of prophecy and the one who bring the world's salvation and fulfill the prophecy. Lady Athena, Lady Artemis, who is the first ones you think about when it came to prophecy? He then turned to the two goddesses and asked with a respectful tone, someone who can decide, who can change and control the destinies of others. I would think about my brother Apollo, the god of prophecy, but Artemis then said, but if you're talking about someone who can control the destiny, then the fates. Athena nodded her head and Sarutobi also nodded. They came to me the same night Minato and Kushina died, releasing their godly counterpart from their body, Zeus and Athena. It was a dark night and Sarutobi never felt so scared before in his life. I am one of the only two people that know about Naruto-kun's parents' true origin, the other is Jiraiya. That night, 3 women appeared before me when I was about to bring Naruto-kun to his parent, knowing full well that they will come back for their son. They came and told me that no matter what happened I must not give Naruto-kun to his godly parent because by the time Naruto left this world, there will be no children of prophecy, and if there was no children of prophecy, this world by this time is done for. Sarutobi continued. Sooner or later when Kagaya Otsutsuki is done with our world, she will head to the realm of the gods to take the position she thought was hers. Everything would end if you did not stay here, Naruto-kun. Was my life is just a simple game for someone to control? Naruto asked through gritted teeth. He still remembered Niji's words during their fight at the Chunin exam years ago, that fate could not be changed. He said he could change fate, and yet. All his life, what he do had been decided by 3 old women. They took the opportunity of having a family, what he desired the most, away from him, just because some stupid prophecy. The fates shouldn't be able to affect your life, Naruto-kun. Sarutobi said with a sad eyes. Our world is completely separated from theirs, each person can choose what they want to do in this world, but you're the son of 2 Olympians. Human or god, you're still the son of them, 2 beings from that world. Zeus and Hera didn't know that they had gave birth to a perfect child who the fates can use to stop the end of the war. Naruto gritted his teeth even harder and slammed his fist on the wall, completely shattered that section under his strength. Fates, huh? Naruto snorted with anger. You 3, can you leave us alone? The immortal group knew better than argue with Naruto at the moment, so they quickly got out of the room and left Naruto alone with Sarutobi. What are you going to do now, Naruto-kun? The old Hokage said. Now? I'm going to that world, he said before grinning evilly, not just because I want to meet my parent and seek for something I always wanted. I want to mess with fate. Truthfully, he wanted to beat them, since gods couldn't die, simply fade away for a few years or so before returning. It would be very simple to beat them until they couldn't get up from the ground. No, that would be too easy. He wanted to prove to them that his life wasn't for them to decide. He would piss them off first, do something that was out of original, he would mess with their domains. He would change every single future they decided to his liking. Unpredictable is in your name, brat. Kurama smirked. But not even gods dare to defy the fates like you. Are you sure you're ready to take this challenge? You know me, Kurama, Naruto said with a confident smile. I will show them I am more than capable of doing that. Jai-chan. Naruto looked at the Hokage. Thank you for telling me the truth. I think I know what I should do. I'm sorry for not telling you, Naruto-kun, but as you can see, I died too soon before you can mature enough to handle the informations, Sarutobi said sadly. Don't worry, Jai-chan. But Naruto-kun, if you decided to go to your parent world, I have a few words for you, he then said with serious tone. The world you are about to go to is a very complicated world. The gods held pride in powers that sometime they shouldn't be the people you think they should be. Even your parent Naruto, Zeus and Hera. Well, they could be one of the greatest people in this world at human, they was. Not the best kind of gods out there. Even the 2 goddesses waiting for you outside. Naruto nodded. Athena might appear to be a wise goddess, Artemis could be a very prideful goddess, but sometime they are not who you think. Just promise me that when you know the truth, you will handle wisely everything like the hero you are, who led the shinobi world to victory. I promise, Jai-chan. Oh, okay. Naruto scratched the back of his P Pacific Ocean. Good, what about this one? Athena pointed to another area on the huge map she was using to teach Naruto about their world. Around them was multi-books and various kind of comics, which were all for children half of his age. Of course, Naruto couldn't depend on Kurama all the time, so he asked Athena to help him with English, since she was the most friendly one among the immortal group. But it wasn't make her an easy teacher, quite opposite to say the least. Naruto totally forgot that this woman was the goddess of wisdom, and his normal behavior wasn't tolerated by Athena in the slightest. This goddess made Iruka's strict teaching look like teaching children how to count from 1 to 10. But he learned fast, Athena said that herself. Even the goddess of wisdom was surprised by this. Artemis, however, wasn't. What Athena was teaching was pretty simple, so of course the simple-minded idiot understood it pretty fast. It would soon change when they get to the complicate things. Speaking of whom, the huntress along with her lieutenant already went hunting at the forest outside of Konoha. In just a few hours after Naruto and his team returned to Konoha and told Tsunade about his upcoming leaving, the news somehow spread all over elemental nations like fire on hay. Of course, the information about Naruto's real parent and his true origin, as well as the immortal group with him right now, was kept at the Triple S top secret information. It would cause chaos all over the countries if they found out that Naruto was the son of 2 powerful gods and the 2 women staying at Konoha right now was goddess, not to mention Zo being an immortal. What the people of elemental nations knew was that he was about to leave for a very long time, going to the faraway lands that were even outside of the elemental nation, and became a wanderer like his late sensei. I heard that you dreamed to become this village's leader, the Hokage, right? Athena asked as she put the book down and asked Naruto. Yeah, to be Hokage, that's my dream. Naruto smiled slightly at first. I just want to be Hokage in order to have people acknowledge me, grow up, and I found it is more than just acknowledgement. True. Athena nodded her head. She of all people was too familiar with the word leader. You know, you don't have to leave this village forever. With your father's power he can teleport you to this place whenever he wants, it's just that he can't come to this world due to the oath he made with the Styx long ago. Is the Styx that terrify? For us gods, we won't be affected by her curse. But the curse itself will go to our children, Athena explained, so if they broke that oath, bad fortune will get to you, and that will be the last thing they want to do. Is that so? Naruto nodded his head and stood up. Hey, where are you going? We're still finished this yet. Athena tried to grab him, but the boy already got to the front door of his apartment. Hey, what is the big deal? I already have the clone study for me, he pointed out. Clones filled every single area of his apartment, with a book in each of their hands. His copies were helping him speeding up the language learning process. With the speed they were learning and the amount of clones Naruto summoned, he would more or less have the basic grab of the world he was going to come to. To say Athena was shocked was an understatement because she'd never seen such useful technique before in her immortal life, both in daily learning and war strategies. Athena could read dozens of books per day and perfectly understand them, but the idea of Naruto with his clones could read hundreds maybe thousands of books depend on the amount of clones he summoned, then at the end of the day, all knowledge transfer back to him when the clones disappear was truly terrifying. It wasn't like she didn't believe in this method of learning and she could teach the clones if she wanted to, but she preferred to teach the original since everything gone to him anyway. Plus, teaching a whole class with the same face was a little bit creepy, even for a goddess like her. Naruto put on his jacket and opened the door. But the moment he opened it, Naruto-senpai, please don't leave. Please, our village needs you. You're a hero, don't leave. Please give me your child first before departing. If you really have to go, please accept my gifts first. The hero of the elemental nation instantly slammed his door closed and used his back to block the door. There were a lot of people waiting outside of his apartment, most of them were girls and young women, and some of them even had gifts in their hands, from foods to various kinds of gifts that he could think of. Well, don't let Artemis see that girls are swooning over you. Athena advised wisely while explaining a few details to a clone of Naruto. You don't have to tell me. He quickly escaped through the window and headed to the hospital, where Tsunade was waiting with his new hand. Line break. How do you feel, Naruto? Tsunade Senju asked as she held a small board with a pen in her hands, looking at Naruto who just went through surgery just fine. Naruto looked at his new hand made from the Harem Hokage's cells, which was wrapped completely in bandages. Tsunade thought it would be best wrapped his new hands by bandages, since her grandfather's cells combined with the flesh of other could get a very unhealthy feeling for the one who saw it. At least he didn't have the Shadam's face poked out of his arms like Madara or Danzo. The blonde moved his index finger and saw that it reacted to him immediately. Naruto then turned his hand around and tightened his hand into a fist, gripping it tightly and smirked. Well, Bachan, this is as good as my original one, he grinned at the former Harem Hokage. Good, but we still need to run some more tests on your arms, the blonde groaned, making Tsunade glare at him. Shut up, brat, this is for your own good. Yeah? What about Sasuke? He asked. If Tsunade had finished with his right arm, then she probably finished with Sasuke's left arm. Sakura is taking care of his hand, Naruto wolf whistled before receiving a light swat on the head by Tsunade's clipboard. Naruto quickly gathered his things and got out of the hospital before the 53-year-old lady in disguise could grab him, heading toward Ichiraku Ramen to grab a hot and delicious meal. The surgery took him 3 hours in the morning. It could take longer, but since Tsunade was a professional, she made it way faster than normal medic nin, so Naruto particularly very hungry right now. Thanks to Naruto's reputation, in just a few days after the world, Ichiraku's Ramen had become one of the most popular restaurant in the entire elemental nations. The place literally overwhelmed with costumers 24 hours. What made him super glad was that the Naruto topping had become the most popular topping now, and every shinobi and Kunoichi of Konoha came to eat a bowl of ramen before missions, in hopes of getting success on mission like Naruto. Now just wait a minute. Ichiraku Tuchi even hired some of the shinobi team of the village to become the entrance guard for his restaurant, so it was the common sight to see some of the new graduated teams of Konoha standing in front of the entrance and stop the massive crowds of costumers trying to get into the place. Please step in line, please. Maybe it wasn't a good decision for coming to a crowd place like this, remembering what happened this morning at his apartment, but Naruto was craving for an extra big bowl of ramen with ramen topping, so he decided to take the risk. Stood at the end of the line with both of his hands in his pocket, Naruto waited patiently for his turn until. It's Naruto-senpai. He heard the shout and turned behind to see a young boy pointing at him with the brightest smile ever. Instantly those words reached everyone's ears and they turned around and soon got to see the familiar hero of elemental nations. Yeah, he chuckled nervously. That's me soon. Villagers surrounded around him and tried to ask him for his signatures or even trying to convince him to not leave the village at this timing. Luckily for him, a certain teacher of Ninja Academy came in to rescue as he pulled Naruto out of the crowd by his collar, making everyone yelled out in disappointment. Sorry guys, let me borrow him for a moment. Naruto turned around and a smile made it to his face when he saw one of his most favorite teachers, Haruka Yamino, standing behind him with a smile on his face. Haruka-sensei. The blonde grinned widely. Let's come in Naruto, my treat this time. This day couldn't get any better. A few minutes later, sitting at a table in the middle of the crowded ramen restaurant, Naruto and Haruka were eating their foods, which the former more or less gulping down bowl after bowl of extra big ramen served by the restaurant's waitresses. The blonde ate his food with a happy smile on his face, happy that he didn't have to worry about his Gama-chan became thin because of him. So Naruto, when are you going to go? Haruka started the conversation, slowly eating his ramen. Well, after Sasuke go I will go to. Naruto nodded his head, putting the empty ramen bowl down and grabbed another one. He told me something about traveling the world to see how it works, so more or less we both will leave Konoha in a day or two. Haruka was one of a few people knew the truth behind Naruto's departure. And say that I'm not sad when you are about to leave. The teacher smiled at him. Don't worry Haruka-sensei, Athena said that I can visit Konoha from time to time if I can ask Pop help me with the transportation, he pointed out with a grin. Plus I don't think that world ramen is as good as Ichiraku. The brown-haired Chunin laughed at that. To say Naruto was glad when he found out the earth also had ramen was an understatement. Artemis or any gods could summon foods and really delicious at that, but he prefers handmade more than magical made like what the goddess did. I never got to say this to you Naruto, but I thought it was just yesterday that you're still a genin, and I treated you at the small ramen restaurant like usual, Haruka said, looking Naruto with soft eyes, but now you sit here, the hero of the fourth great shinobi war, adored by many and loved by all. I couldn't be more proud of my little brother. The teacher smiled and rubbed Naruto's head, making him grin. A few minutes later, Naruto and Haruka exited the ramen restaurant with the brown-haired Chunin's wallet literally broke, but he didn't have anything against it. The owner of the restaurant, Ichiraku Tucci, wanted to treat his favorite costumer free ramen, but the both of them quickly shut down the ideas and paid for the meal. Haruka paid for the meal. Naruto Nai-chan. Hoi. The blonde turned his head and saw Konohamaru running toward him while waving his arm. Hey Haruka-sensei. Konohamaru? He asked in surprise before grinning. How are you? I'm great. The grandson of the late Sandaime Hokage grinned before saying, hey, check this out. There is something I want to show you. Really? Yeah, he nodded before running ahead. Hurry. Boy, wait for me. Naruto quickly followed behind, not forgot to wave goodbye to Haruka. See you later Haruka-sensei. The two of them got to Konohamaru's house and the genin led Naruto into a room, looked like a storage room with a lot of stuffs and boxes and things that looked pretty old and untouched for a long time, though the place was well kept and tidy. I found this while cleaning the place. The smaller genin grabbed a big box and put it down to the ground, opened it and showed Naruto a grinning monkey wearing the Hokage's hat as well as the costume of the Sandaime Hokage. What is this anyway? He looked at it with curious eyes, glancing into the box and saw a lot of things inside. Two junks. It's not junks. Konohamaru shook his head. They are all remembrances of Oji-chan. Oh, Naruto nodded his head. So what is this stuff's all about? Ah, I think this is your mother's things. Naruto Nai-chan. His eyes widened in surprise. Oji-chan keeps all her things here. He then reached his hands into the box and pulled out a blue scarf with white stripes. Here, I think she made this for you. Naruto gently took the scarf from Konohamaru and held it in both hands. Mother, he whispered in English. She made this for him. Kushina Uzumaki, or better known as Hera, made this for him. You should keep them. This is your mother's belongings after all. Okay, thank you Konohamaru. Line break. Yosh Naruto-kun. The flame of youth within us is burning brighter than ever, so let's party until both of us can even walk anymore, Lee shouted energetically, with a voice full of POWER youth, and put his hand on Naruto's shoulders, leaning against the blonde while holding a bottle of water in his hand. Alright, Naruto chuckled nervously, glad that guy had changed the bottle of sake with a bottle of water from Lee's hand, or else he would be screaming and using drunken fists to destroy the whole place. They were at the Ichiraku's ramen again, but this time the place was used to give Naruto the farewell party. He had tried to explain to Tsunade that he wasn't going to go forever and would visit the village from time to time, but the busty Hokage shook it off and forced him to go to the party against his will. All of Naruto's friends and close people were here, from the Rookie 12 and Team Guy to Konohamaru and his squad, with Abisu sitting at the round table in the middle of the street, which had been closed at both sides in order to have enough spaces for the people invited to the party, laughing with each other. I and Kakashi and the teachers of each team with Haruka were talking with each other, with the former sitting on a wheelchair and still hadn't fully recovered yet but still came here, which Naruto very grateful about. Even the Kages were here, sitting at the table while talking with each other. The Sand siblings were having a hard time trying not to get sucked too much into the party, but he could see that Shikamaru and Temari was pretty close with each other now. The Immortal Maidens were also invited and they currently sitting at a lone table at the corner. They would never come here if not for Naruto forcing them to come, with Athena was the first goddess since she was curious about the villages, and Artemis and Zoe had no choice but followed her as well, since Athena was the only one who could speak Japanese. Misunderstanding in language could cause unnecessary trouble. Here you go. Naruto, Ino and Sai approached him and gave the blonde a small box, a departing gift. This is from the both of us. Thank you, Ino, Sai. He nodded gratefully and opened his scroll to store the next departing gifts his friends gave him, which he had received all night. The party continued for the next 3 hours with a lot of things happened. Lee finally got his hand on Sake, and the next things they knew, Guy's favorite student was dancing around while moving his body wildly in a drunken fist, destroying everything he caught sight of, and sent anyone who tried to stop him flying, until Artemis snapped her finger, turning him into a creature that resembled a rabbit and antelope horns, much to everyone's shock. But she did turn him back to normal after everyone secured him to make sure he wouldn't destroy the restaurant if he is turned back to normal. Naruto sat opposite from Sasuke, who liked him already had a new hand. They talked about their own intention in the future, separating themselves from the wild party. However, when the party was about to end, Naruto caught sight of a young woman sitting at teammates' table. Unlike everyone who had already drunk and laughing, she was having her head down and her eyes looked sad, hands gripping a small box tightly on her lap. Since the funeral, he'd never seen Hinata Hyuga look so sad like that. Excuse me, Sasuke, Sakura-chan. He stood up from their seat and walked toward Hinata's table. Where are but Sasuke was stopped when Sakura put a finger on his lips. She was smiling while looking at Naruto. Naruto stood at teammates' table for a moment. It seemed that Hinata still not realize he was standing behind her yet, so he spoke up. Hey Hinata, can I sit here? The girl's head snapped up and she turned around to look at him with wide eyes. Then Naruto-kun, she stuttered in surprise. Of course you can. And he did, sitting at the chair next to Hinata. They stayed silent for a moment as neither party decided to be the first one who start the conversation. Getting uncomfortable with the silence between them, Naruto decided to speak up first. So Hinata, Naruto-kun. However, Hinata also decided to break the silence as the two looked at each other for a moment. You once again, they said at the same time, but the light lavender eyes beauty quickly said. You go first, Naruto-kun. Oh, alright, he nodded. Why didn't you enjoy the party and sit here all alone? He asked, looking at her. I don't feel like partying tonight, she whispered. Naruto-kun. Yeah? Are you really going to leave? She asked quietly. Yeah, was all his reply. I don't know for how long, but I will make sure to ask my dad bring me back to visit you guys every chance I got. Even himself was unsure of that. Sorry Naruto-kun, but I need to go now. Hinata then suddenly stood up and ran away with a box held close to her chest. In just a moment Naruto could see a small glint of light from her eyes. It was tears. Dumbfounded, Naruto sat there, questioned himself about what just happened, scratching the back of his head in confusion. His eyes stayed on Hinata. Sai. Naruto turned around and saw Sasuke and Sakura standing behind him. You will never learn, do you? I'll learn what? Naruto asked with a slight forced smile. Follow her, Dumbus. Sakura shouted and slammed her hand on the table, making it broke into pieces and made the foods and plates fell down to the ground. Naruto flinched and jumped out of his chair. Hi! He shouted, spinning around and went after Hinata as quick as he could. With his speed he quickly caught up to her, but Hinata already got into her house and closed the door behind her. Oi Hinata, he shouted, slamming his hands against the door rapidly. Please open the door. There was no answer. If you don't open the door I will break in. He was going to be in so much trouble with Hiashi after this, but then again, he wasn't going to stay in this village for long, so luckily he would escape the usual stoic Hyuga's wrath. And it was about time he test his new hand's ability to use ninjutsu. Bringing his hand back, Naruto summoned an orange Rasengan in his hand. It was a lot easier to do it with only one hand than before, and the blonde couldn't help but grin at that. I will count to 3. If you don't open it I will break in. Maybe this method was a bit extreme. 1 2 3. He thrust his hand forward. However, right at that moment the door opened. But the girl who opened it wasn't Hinata, but her sister Hanabi. Shit. He stopped midway and deactivated the jutsu before it could touch Hanabi. Then Naruto-senpai. The girl looked up. What was that? Nothing. He hid his hand behind his back quickly while the other scratching the back of his head, laughing forcefully. Nothing at all, Hanabi-chan. I heard your voice so I came to open the door, she explained. You want to come in? Nisama just returned home. Oh alright. He walked in and followed behind Hanabi. Sorry for not coming to the farewell party, Naruto-senpai. Hanabi glanced at him and said apologetically. Don't worry about it. He shook his head and followed Hanabi until they were in front of Hinata's room. Nisama, Naruto-senpai is here to see you. She knocked the door slightly. Nisama. She is not inside, Naruto suddenly said. He could feel somebody else in this mansion other than Hanabi, but they wasn't in the room. I will go to her. You go to your room. Alright Hanabi. Alright then. The young Hyuga waved slightly. Naruto got to the place appeared to be a garden of the Hyuga mansion, the place filled with plants and all the kinds of flowers he could think of. He could hear the faint sobbing sound and moved toward that direction as quickly yet gently as he could, knowing full well that Hinata was there and he didn't want her to run away again. True enough, the girl was having her head resting against her arms, with both of them put on her knees as she was sitting while leaning her back against a tree. The box was being held closely to her. "Hey, Hinata-chan." Naruto kneed down next to her and said with a gentle tone, "You alright?" The dark blue hair Hyuga princess looked up and turned her eyes at Naruto, showing her beautiful lavender eyes, which were full of tears to Naruto. Looking at her now, the blonde felt like he was really an ass now. Then suddenly, Hinata threw herself into his chest, crying out loudly. Naruto was surprised by her sudden action, but his eyes then softened and gently brought his arms around her, hugging her tightly to his chest. "It's okay now, I'm here," he said gently running his hand through her hair. "This is going to be a long night," he thought. "Line break, this is for you, Naruto-kun," Hinata said with her head resting on his shoulder. The both of them was sitting close to each other while leaning their back against a tree. She handed him the small box, which Naruto took it with both of his hand. "Thank you, Hinata-chan," he smiled. He had decided to wait until he got to the new world, but everything had its exception, so he would make one with Hinata's gift. He reached his hand inside and felt something very soft, like clothes or something like that. Naruto then grabbed a hold of it and pulled out. It was a long red scarf. And it looked very familiar. "This is. You remember, Naruto-kun?" she asked quietly, closing her eyes. "That is the scarf you wore many years ago. On a snowy day, when we were both preparing to enroll the academy, you came and saved me from a group of bullies." Memories returned to his mind. Now Naruto remembered that day and the scarf in his hand, though you failed and easily beaten. "And your scarf trampled over by them. I asked you to keep it, right?" Naruto asked, chuckling to himself. He was so weak back then since it was ruined. "Yes. And you kept it till this day." He looked at the scarf, "And you even knitted it back again." "Yes, Naruto-kun," she whispered. "Strange, in just a day and I got two scarf." He chuckled, pulled out from his pocket the green one of his mother, showing it to Hinata. "My mother made this to me before you know she died and returned to her world." "Is that so?" Hinata put her hand on the scarf and gently moved her hand on it. She could tell that the person who made it put a lot of effort into making the scarf just like her when she knit Naruto's scarf. "Thank for the gift again, Hinata." He smiled at her. "Thought it would be weird if I wear them both at once, so maybe he would change them to a regular basic." "Naruto-kun, you said you will return." She then moved her head back slightly to look at him. "Are you really mean it?" "Of course, Hinata, I mean it." He nodded. "No matter where I go, this place will always be my home. To me, there are a lot precious people here, those that I consider my family: Sasuke, Sakura-chan, Kakashi-sensei, Ba-chan, Iruka-sensei." He looked up, leaning the back of his head against the tree. "So of course I will be back, there is no way I can leave this place for long. Every weekend if I can help it." "I'm glad." Hinata smiled softly and leaned her head against his shoulder once again. The two of them stayed like that for the rest of the night, enjoying each other company. Line break, all set. "All set." Naruto nodded his head, gathering the rest of the scrolls which was containing his ninja's gears, weapons and of course the gifts everyone gave him and put it into his backpack. He walked to the table and took the old picture of the Team 7 when they were just past Kakashi's bell test ad, put it into his bag, checking every drawers to make sure he didn't leave anything back. Naruto opened the last drawer and saw Sasuke's old head protector. Freezing for a moment, he then reached his hand out and grabbed the thing, put it into his pocket and threw the backpack on his shoulder after zipping the zipper up. "Alright, let's go," Naruto said to Athena, who was standing by the door waiting for him. The two of them walked to the main gate of Konoha in silent. He was going to leave the village very soon in the morning, so there weren't many people currently on the street of Konoha. The two regrouped with Artemis and Zoe after the two of them had finished packing up their things, some of which were the fur of animals Artemis said could only be found at this world. When they got to the main gate, Naruto caught sight of his best friend, standing with his back leaning against the gate. "Can't say I'm not surprised to see you here, Sasuke," Naruto said with a slight grin. His hand reached into his pocket and grabbed Sasuke's forehead protector. "I thought I would be the first person to say goodbye," the Uchiha said, "but I guess I was wrong." He stepped forward and stood in front of Naruto. "So I guess this is it, huh?" "Yeah, when I return to visit Konoha," Naruto said. "I doubt that you will be here to greet me. Do you really have to leave?" Naruto asked, pulling what he was holding out of his pocket. "Sakura-chan will be sad, you know." "I know I have to do this." Sasuke shook his head to see how this world really work and redempt for my sins. Naruto sighed before his face spread out on a small smile. He then brought the forehead protector up and gave it to Sasuke. "I think this is yours." Sasuke grabbed it with a nod. "You can leave this world to me, Konoha, Fire Country, Elemental Nation." Sasuke then smiled. "If you need any helps, you know where to find." "I know. Take care, Naruto," Sasuke said loudly. "You too." With a final nod, Naruto stepped up and stood beside the immortal group. Sasuke that took a few steps back to make some distance with him. "Let's go," Naruto said, earning a nod from Athena. "Okay then." She then looked at the sky. "We're ready, father." "Father?" Naruto asked in confusion, but the next moment, a lightning bolt shot out from the sky and struck the four of them. In a blink, the group was gone. Why do they have to be here anyway? Zeus asked blankly as all of his children, including the children he had through affairs with immortal women, were present in the throne room, the place where he and Hera planned to have a warm welcome for Naruto. Speaking of his wife, she was pacing back and forth around the throne room, looking nervous and worried. He could understand what his wife was feeling, as he was also experiencing the same feelings, but hid it better than her. What if something goes wrong? What will Naruto do when he reunites with them? What is he going to say to them for all the years Naruto had to live alone without his family in the elemental nations? He knew that Hera was also having similar thoughts. While the parents were worrying about their son, the other Olympians however were having different thoughts about the incoming blonde. Damn man, Apollo was chatting merrily with Hermes with his usual shiny smile displayed for all to see, much to their annoyance. I don't know what to say, but I think we're gonna have so much fun hanging out with little fish cake. You know. I think it's about time we did our jobs as big bros and take our little bros to a brothel. The 17 years old hormonal teenager. Yeah, it's good to be young, the god of messengers nodded his head, and Naruto seems pretty fast too. I want to challenge him for a run. Already his sandals flapped their tiny wings rapidly, while the Olympian god grinned. Dionysus, as usual, was reading a wine magazine and really not that interested in Naruto. Being here was just an excuse for him to get away from Camp Half-Blood as long as possible. Babysitting a bunch of disrespectful demigods could get boring in just a few hours after he received his punishment. Demeter was sitting beside the goddess of the hearth, Hestia, who was tending the main hearth. Aside from Zeus and Hera, Hestia was one of the only goddesses that really wanted to get to know Naruto as a family member, which wasn't a surprise since it was her main domain. Demeter, however. Do you think that he loves cereal, sister? Demeter asked, clearly unaware of the blonde's love for a more unhealthy kind of food, even if ramen noodles were made of cereal. I don't know, sister. The kind goddess shook her head with an amused smile. At the far side of the throne room, sitting on their respective thrones were the rest of the Olympians who were present in the Hall of the Gods. Hephaestus, I need you to fix these weapons up for me, Ares said loudly and dropped a magical bag full of weapons, from the traditional ones like swords, spears, shields to the more modern, heavy weapons like machine guns, explosives, RPGs. I need them in the best condition when little brother arrives, he said with a bloodthirsty grin. Why should I? Hephaestus grumbled, picking up a spear which had many cracks adorning it. He really wondered what Ares did these days when peace was a lot more spread out than before for his weapons to end up in this state. You're going to give them to him as a welcome home gift. No, I want to have enough firearms to show that blondie who is the bigger man here. Hephaestus just shook his head. Since he currently didn't have anything to do, he took the bag and began to fix Ares' weapons. The last Olympian however was in her own little world. Aphrodite was looking at herself in a mirror, with her hand holding a pink lipstick and gently moving the tip on her kissable lips. What are you doing? Ares asked his lover with an annoyed tone. I'm making myself perfect, Aphrodite said as she winked at herself in the mirror. The makeup was applied flawlessly. The Prince of Olympus is going to arrive, so I can't make myself look bad, can I? She giggled to herself. It was bad enough that Naruto had showed himself to be a better warrior than Ares, as much as he hated to admit that, and never will. The blonde also caught Aphrodite's interest as well. Not only was she making herself look even sexier than their daily routine, but she also took to her true form. As the goddess of beauty, Aphrodite could change her appearance at will, depending on the perception of beauty of the person she was in the presence of. But this power only applied to mortals, demigods and minor gods, as Olympians could see through her power and get to see her true form, which at the founding of Olympus had driven the gods mad with lust. She was more beautiful than any mortal's perception of beauty. Breathtaking wasn't the right word to describe such an example of physical perfection. But deep sky blue eyes and long curly golden blonde hair that flowed like a waterfall on her back and the sides of her beautiful visage, the latter which was perfectly decorated with magical makeup that seemed to enhance the woman's beauty even further. She was dressed in a skin-tight hot pink backless dress that hugged her otherworldly voluptuous figure and showed off her sexy curves, especially her wide hip and round ass. The dress was tied together behind her neck, with the upper part just enough to cover the front part of her large breasts and left the rest of her cleavage for all to see. Babe, you don't have to look perfect for a little pretty boy who doesn't have a single drop of itcher in his veins, he tried to reason with her, leaning over and put his massive muscular right arm on the armrest of her throne, showing off his muscles. You do know that you have me, right baby? Even with these muscles, Naruto still has more charm than you, dear. The smirk on Ares' face instantly dropped after hearing Aphrodite said that he's so handsome, not to mention so adorable with those whisker marks. It just gives him a feral look, it's so appealing. And from what I've seen, he sure has lots and lots of stamina, Aphrodite daydreamed. This was just more reason for the god of war to punch Naruto's face in. "Father, we're ready." Athena's voice rang inside Zeus's head, which snapped him out of his musings. The master bolt instantly appeared in his hand, and Zeus shot a massive bolt of lightning to the sky, making the other Olympians look at him in surprise before understanding what was about to happen. Naruto Uzumaki was about to come. About a minute later, a blue lightning bolt shot out from the sky and struck the throne room's floor. Those who were standing near it instantly backed off to make the room for the ones who just arrived. Artemis and Athena were the first ones to appear from the lightning bolt, followed closely by Zoe. Naruto, however, fell face first onto the ground, crashing into the hard floor. His clothes were singed, and his hair became even spikier and blackened at the tips. Transportation like this, well, very cool, made Naruto feel like Sasuke just punched him with a full-powered Chidori, and the fact that he wasn't used to it made him fall and look like an idiot. "I'm good." He instantly got on his knees to his belongings, which had fell out of his backpack, before standing up with a large grin. "I'm good, whoa. Damn." His eyes were as wide as dinner plates, totally amazed at the sight of the place he was in, which was big enough to make the Chunin exam arena look like a small closet. 12 gigantic chairs with different kind of designs, the thrones of the gods, stood in a U-shape around the hearth. Even standing at a distance, Naruto could feel a massive amount of energy irradiating coming from those thrones, which surprised him. This whole place has yet to blow up and could withstand such a powerful amount of energy. Naruto. The blonde was surprised once again when a beautiful brown-haired woman threw herself at him with tearful eyes, wrapping her hands around his neck and hugging him tightly against her body, openly crying. Normally Naruto would have blushed because of the sudden close contact with such a beautiful woman like her, but at a moment, a sudden familiar wave of warmth washed over him. Slowly looking down at her, he gasped. Mom? Yes. Yes, it's me, Naruto." She looked at him and put a hand on his cheek. "It's your mother, my baby boy." Naruto wanted to smile, to cheer in glee, but all he could do was let tears fall out from his eyes as he hugged the goddess who called herself his mother, his arms wrapped tightly around her. He had waited so long for this moment to be able to feel the motherly love from his mother, who a month ago he thought was truly dead. The little moment in his mindscape wasn't enough to tell her how much he loved his mother, his family. "You're wearing the scarf I made for you." Naruto looked at the green scarf he had wrapped around his neck. "I found it a few days ago." Naruto nodded his head. "Hey mom, where is dad?" He pulled back and asked his mother, using his right hand to wipe away his tears. "Is he here?" "Yes, my son, he's here." Hera nodded her head, letting go of her youngest child and stepped aside. "Hello son." The king of the gods slowly approached his son with a smile on his face. Like Hera, well, his appearance looked nothing like Minato Namika's. He could feel the familiar feeling of his father coming from the man standing in front of him. The same feeling he felt when he met the Yondaime in his mindscape during Pain's invasion, and when his father came to his aid with the previous Hokages during the Fourth Shinobi War. This man was his dad, and he knew it. "Hey pops." Naruto grinned widely, walking toward Zeus. Zeus spread his arms a little to welcome his son in a fatherly hug. However, the instant Naruto got in front of his dad, Zeus found his son's fist buried in his stomach and delivered a massive blow into his abdomen, knocking the wind out of the king of the gods. Every Olympian save for Ares gasped at his sudden action. Then Naruto, what the hell? He coughed. His son really knew how to punch. It had been ages since Zeus received a hard blow like that, and he would never think that his youngest son would be the one who struck him this hard. "That's for sealing Kurama into me." If someone ever asked him, Naruto would say that punching his father in the gut for the second time felt extremely good was an understatement. "Well, I think I do deserve," but he wasn't able to finish that sentence because Naruto's bandaged right hand suddenly engulfed in Kurama's chakra and went straight at his face, sending the proud and prideful king of the gods himself flying across the room, straight into the opposite wall with so much force that it shook the entire place violently. "And that's for cheating on mom, bastard," Naruto said, loud enough so that Zeus from the other side of the hall could hear him loud and clear. Hera didn't know what to say. Her son just punched her husband in the face with so much force it sent the most powerful god flying like he was just a simple punching bag. A side of hers was so satisfied to have her beloved son stand up for her like that, which never happened before with her other sons, but another side of hers wanted to scold her son for what he did. Bam! Apollo and Hermes said at once with dropped jaws, turning their eyes back and forth between Naruto and a stumped Zeus, who was wiping the itcher from the corner of his mouth and checking his slack jaw, which appeared to be punched out of the place by his human child. "Wow, did you see the Kurama?" Naruto said in amazement while looking at his right hand, which had returned to normal. "I think that with this new hand, I really don't need to transform my whole body to fight." "I agree, but was it necessary to do that?" Kurama asked, sighing boringly. "Well, he did, but he was stopped when his mother swatted him on the back of his head slightly. No fighting between family, understand?" She told him with a motherly glare, the kind of eyes a mother gave to her child when she caught him with his hand in the cookie jar. Yeah, but he does deserve it for cheating on you," Naruto said firmly. "Athena told me everything after she called dad father. I knew something was off with these gods thing." During the teleportation, Naruto was able to force the goddess of wisdom to tell him everything, and to say he was shocked to know that his father was literally a man whore was an understatement, cheating on his mother for thousands of years without stopping. Having a punch to the face from his son was the least kind of punishment Naruto could think about. So you know. Naruto nodded his head without even turning around to look at Zeus. From now on you better watch your move, old man, or I'm going to kick your ass. Naruto turned around and glared at him with a smirk before turning around to look at his mother. So mom, can you introduce me to the rest of our big family? He asked with a happy smile. The palm then collided with his upper back in greeting as he stumbled forward to regain balance. Looking at the side, the blonde saw a handsome-looking teenager about 18 or 19, with sandy blonde hair and outdoorsy good looks, a bright and playful smile, and a look that just screamed movie star. The guy was very tall, taller than him by almost a head, and was dressed in jeans, loafers, and a sleeveless t-shirt. But what surprised him the most was that his face greatly resembled a certain feisty moon goddess. "Yo little bro," Apollo said with a bright smile, "I take that you already know little sis over there." He pointed his thumb at Artemis, who was crossing her arms underneath her chest, but instantly turned to glare daggers at Apollo. "Apollo, for the 1000th time, we're twins." The goddess of the moon scolded, "Plus, mother birthed me first." "Whatever, little sis, don't call me that." Naruto chuckled a little at the brother and sisters bickering. "Well, good to see you, Apollo." Naruto grinned at him. "The name's Naruto." "I know, fish cake," Apollo said with a hint of humor in his tone and held out his fist, which Naruto punched it lightly. "Now we're talking." Guy's shining smile stood no chance against this guy's bright smile. Naruto was sure of it. "So, I take it we're half-brothers." Naruto grinned at him. "That's cool with me." He didn't have any problem with Zeus's other children, it just made the family he always wanted bigger. "How do you do, Naruto?" A middle-aged man with a muscular build, curly black hair, blue eyes, elfish features, and a sly grin approached him. He was wearing a black suit and his shoes. The coolest thing about this man Naruto could think about was his shoes, which had a pair of tiny wings flapping slowly on each of them. "I'm Hermes. God of messengers, astronomy, thieves, roads, swordsmanship and speed." "Yeah, Athena forced me to remember every single detail." Naruto nodded his head, glancing at the goddess of wisdom a little before turning his eyes down Hermes' shoes with excitement. "Can those things let you fly or something?" "You mean like this?" Naruto whistled when Hermes' body was lifted off the ground and floated on the air with the help of his magical shoes. "Where can I find one of those?" Naruto asked, amazed. Suddenly, a thick and powerful scent of perfume hit his nose, the kind of perfume Ino and the more girlish girls of Konoha would use, but about 100 times or so stronger. "What do you want, Aphrodite?" Naruto could hear annoyance in his mother's voice as the most beautiful and attractive woman he had ever seen in his life slowly approached him with an alluring smile on her face. "How cold of you, Hera," the goddess of love giggled, her blue eyes fixed on Naruto. "Well, hello there, Handsome." Her voice was sweet. He could hear Artemis sniggering mockingly behind him. "Any advice about her, Kurama?" Naruto asked his partner. This woman smelt exactly like trouble. She made his instincts go haywire. Athena never mentioned anything about this woman during her lectures, and since she definitely didn't forget to, there must be a reason when the goddess of wisdom decided to not tell Naruto about something. "Let's see," the fox scratched his chin slightly. "Your mother once told me about her. Aphrodite. The goddess of love and beauty." Oh, Naruto nodded his head, his mind replayed Artemis and Zoe's reaction when he asked about whether or not they had a love gods. And also of lust and sexuality. Naruto nearly fell face first to the ground when it came to keep a close relationship. "Maybe she is only second to your dad. Hera always complained about her." "She cheated on her husband, who is your brother." Kurama groaned. These humans' relationships were too complicated for his liking for her lover, who is also your brother. I think I get it now." Naruto, at the outside world, slammed his fist into the palm of his other hand. "Surprise everyone, I think I read about these kind of girls in a book Athena lent me." "Oh, and?" Aphrodite asked sultrily, slowly closing the gap between them. "Let's see, the right word is floor. No, score. Score." Athena instantly knew what Naruto was going to say. "Whore. That's it, you're a whore." He declared like it was the most obvious thing in the world, leaving everyone stunned and froze in absolute shock. Aphrodite felt like her world was just shattered right in front of her eyes after hearing Naruto calling her that, a whore. She had been called that many times before, to the point she was now completely immune to insults. But those insults were never said by a male, most of the time it was Artemis, never a mortal man like him. And that pissed her off to no end. Sorry." She then used her charm speak. "But what did you call me again, Naruto dear?" Kurama roared out in laughter before shaking his head, reacting rapidly and negating the effect of the goddess of love's charm speak. "She is using her godly power to charm you, Naruto," the fox warned. "Be careful." "Sorry, but that won't work on me." He took a step forward and used his index finger to flick Aphrodite on her forehead, strong enough to push her down to the ground and stun her momentarily. Aphrodite gasped in shock when she fell on her backside. Her charm speak failed, her charm speak never failed before, not even the gods themselves could withstand the effect of her full-powered charm speak. If you know what is good for you Aphrodite she heard Hera's voice talking to her through telepathy stay away from Naruto, he isn't someone you can play around with. The goddess of love bit her lips, it seems that she would have to wait for another opportunity. Naruto turned his head to the next god who was slowly approaching him. He was a huge and ugly lump of a man with his shoulders at different heights and a huge bulging misshapen head and his leg in a creaking steel brace with a wild brown beard that sparks fire from time to time. He was the only Olympian he saw so far to show such extreme physical injuries, however, he was also very muscular. His face is red, lumpy and covered with welts. "Hello," Naruto greeted him politely. "Hello Naruto." Hephaestus's voice was deep, booming, and rumbly. "I'm Hephaestus and I'm your brother." His eyes glanced to Hera slightly, but quickly returned to Naruto quickly. Naruto saw bitterness inside his eyes, and as you can see, But Naruto stopped him by stepping forward and wrapped his arms around his brother's neck in a brotherly hug, grinning from ear to ear as he held the god of smiths and craftsmanship in his arms. Hephaestus was stunned and looked at Naruto in confusion. None of his siblings, especially a certain warmonger, had showed this much brotherly affection towards him like Naruto. "You have no idea how much I wanted to meet my full-blooded siblings," he chuckled when he saw Zeus look down and guiltily, "but what happened to you? You seem like someone who had been ran over by a train." "Well, as I was saying," Hephaestus said, his usual permanent scowl disappeared. "I'm not the most handsome kind of gods here." "Nah, you're cool to me." Naruto patted the man's muscular arm playfully. "I heard that you're very smart and talented in making things. How cool is that? Never judge a book by his cover." Hephaestus might be ugly, but he was extremely talented and could make almost anything. Having such a cool brother like that was something he always wished for in a family. "Well, if you say so." Brother, a smile made it to his face when Hephaestus nodded his head at his younger brother. "Hey mama's boy," voice laced with arrogance, made Naruto turn his head slightly to see a rather tall handsome man with scarred cheeks and an oiled crew cut. He wore black jeans, combat boots, a leather duster, and muscle shirt with a bulletproof vest, and an iron padlock necklace, red-tinted wraparound sunglasses to cover his flame-filled eye sockets. "Come and greet your big brother. I take it that you're Ares," Naruto said blankly before a blank smile spread out on his face. "Well, hello. Show some respect to your elders." Little punk Ares pulled out his massive knife and twirling it in his hand. "The only reason I didn't gut you right here for that disrespectful greeting is mom and dad's presence here. And the only reason I didn't do anything to you yet was because mom doesn't want violence between family members," Naruto said lazily. "I like that kind of tone. Watch your steps, punk." He walked towards Aphrodite and grabbed her by the arm. "Let's go dite." "Hey, let go of me." Aphrodite shook her hand from the strong grip of her lover, feeling rather annoyed by his sudden action. "So? I take that she's your wife, nah?" He only had two older brothers, and one of them was trying to pull the beautiful love goddess with him. It was not that hard to figure it out. "Yes, she is," Hephaestus grumbled. He used to love her a lot, but after 3,000 years of being cheated on constantly, he didn't feel any love to the love goddess anymore and would happily divorce to her if his mother allowed him to. Too bad for him, thought. Hera was the goddess of marriage and there would be absolutely no chance for him to have their marriage bond broken. Ares left the place while mumbling about going to the mortal world to find a woman, as Aphrodite had refused to go back to his place this time. "And nice to see you too, brother," Naruto shouted over. The love goddess turned around and winked at Naruto, who just laughed forcefully at that. From what Kurama told him, Aphrodite was a woman with a happy-go-lucky attitude and immunity to insult similar to him. She was someone who usually just shrugged off insults and lived her days without caring about it one bit. Naruto could already see himself in a future with Aphrodite poking her head into every single corner of his life, as the goddess seemed to take a liking to him already. Oh, how right he was. Forget about it. Now Naruto looked around. Where is this super kind goddess of the hearth and family, who Athena told me about? I think she was talking about me. Another goddess walked toward him gracefully from the hearth, followed closely by a woman with long blonde hair the color of ripe wheat and wore a bright green dress with a dark cape, which gave her the appearance of a fresh plant breaking through fertile earth whenever she moved. She also wore a crown of woven corn leaves and adornments of poppies, and she had a scent of a rainstorm over a field of jasmine. Unlike Aphrodite, whose beauty seemed otherworld, the goddess of love didn't have the kind of natural beauty Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, had. She was sweet and beautiful in an unpretentious way. She had an honest smile, warm brown eyes, and black hair that framed her face in ringlets. She wore a plain, modest brown dress and kept her hair tucked under a linen shawl. "Aunt Hestia, right?" Naruto smiled and hugged the black-haired woman tightly, who welcomed him with a tight hug. "Welcome to Olympus, nephew." She smiled warmly at him after pulling back. "And welcome to the family." "Thank you, Aunt Hestia." Naruto smiled and turned to the last woman. "And you're Aunt Demeter, right?" "Why yes, I am the goddess of the harvest." Nodded her head. "Tell me, Naruto, do you like cereal?" she asked hopefully. No, truthfully it is one of my least favorite meals. Naruto shook his head, and Demeter was taken aback by his declaration. I like ramen more. He smiled sheepishly. The blonde-hair woman shook her head before turning away, huffing and flashing away with a scowl on her face. Did I say something wrong? Of course not. Naruto Hestia shook her head with a kind smile. She is just upset that you don't like cereal, that is all. Ahem, Zeus cleared his throat. Now if everyone is done with their greetings and introductions, I would like you to all return to your duty. We can't leave the world running without the gods watching over it. Then I will return to the hunt. Father Artemis was the first one to say that to the king of gods and put a hand on her lieutenant's shoulder, flashing both of them away in a silver flash. Naruto, if you need any help, feel free to ask, Athena told the blonde, who nodded gratefully before flashing away as well. See you later, Handsome. Aphrodite approached Naruto and tried to kiss his cheek goodbye, but the blonde blocked her lips with his bandaged hand. You're no fun at all. She winced playfully, playing hard to get with that. She teleported away in a thick cloud of perfume, returning to her duty of spreading love and broken hearts all over the world. Naruto coughed while using his hand to blow the perfume away. Hard to get. He didn't even understand what she meant by that. Naruto, if you want any kind of ninja weapon made or just want to chat, feel free to come over my forge. Hephaestus offered. Are you kidding me? Of course I will. He then reached his hand into his pocket and pulled out a kunai. Check this out. I don't think this world has this kind of metal, so have a look at it. The god of smiths nodded his head and disappeared. Oh yeah, I think it is about time I ride my baby around the world again, Apollo said cheerily to Naruto. Sayonara bro. Naruto chuckled when the god flashed away in a blinding flash. If you need ant delivery made or just want to hang out, contact me, Hermes said, cause I'm the fastest being alive. He teleported away as well. My place is here. Hestia walked toward the main hearth and sat down. You three should go somewhere else to have a family bonding moment. You don't have to tell us, sister, both Zeus and Hera said at the same time before leading Naruto out of the throne room. Line break. Damn, Naruto muttered, standing at the cliff of Olympus with his hand leaning against a barrier, looking at the city below. You mean this mountain actually floats in the sky? Even from this place, high above the clouds, Naruto could hear the sound of bustling in the city, with strange vehicles and people in strange outfits. He was looking at the city from the cliff of Olympus with his father, who was standing next to him with his back leaning against the barrier. Hera, who decided to let Naruto have a few moments with his father, who didn't give a very good first impression to his son, had gone somewhere else and would return later. Naruto could also see a lot of tall buildings, called skyscrapers, from this position as well, actually amazed by the capability of the humans of this world. Maybe when he returned to visit Konoha he would bring the idea of making skyscrapers back with him to the elemental nations as well. Yes, Olympus is originally located on Mount Olympus in Greece. It has steadily moved over to the west, following the heart of Western civilization over the centuries. Zeus nodded his head. Instead of being located on a physical mountain, it is a metaphysical duplicate. This mountain does not connect with the ground and cannot be detected by mortals due to the mist. The two stood in silence for a moment before Naruto decided to speak up. Dad, can I ask you a question? Of course, my son. Why did you cheat on mom? Naruto asked, his voice remained as calm as possible. Was she not enough for you? I had nothing to say for my actions in the past. Naruto. Zeus shook his head. I fathered too many children with other women, Athena, Artemis, Apollo, Hermes. But you, Naruto, the god turned to his son with a smile, you're my redemption to her. After everything I had done, Hera agreed to start everything over with me, not as immortals, but as two normal humans. He then chuckled. Well, not entirely normal, but we did start over. I came to love her again, more than ever. Zeus looked at Hera, who was running toward them with a basket in her hand. We got each other once again with the love of two mortals, unaffected by Aphrodite, because we formed it in a different dimension. You're the result of that love. Alright, Dad. Naruto smiled at him, and you better keep it that way or else a punch won't be the only thing you will get from me. But for some reason, something was telling him there were more to this. Okay guys, Hera smiled at them, kneeling on a colorful picnic sheet and the basket next to her. Come here. Zeus looked at Hera in confusion while Naruto just grinned and sat down in front of his mother with his legs crossed. Come on Dad, come here, Naruto called him. I made some of your favorite ramen. Naruto. Hera reached her hand inside the basket and pulled out a few bowls of ramen, and since she already took out about a dozen of them, the basket must be a magical thing to be able to contain that many, and since I don't really know which ones you like the most, I made everything I can think of. Wow, this many, Mom? Naruto asked, picking up a bowl and took a sniff, and it smells good too. You made this yourself in such a short time. Of course I made them myself. Naruto looked at her. Okay, I did make them with the help of magic, but I didn't just summon them. Now eat up, Naruto. Hera smiled. Eat and tell us everything. Naruto opened the first bowl of ramen and took the chopsticks from his father, starting to eat while retelling his story at Elemental Nations. From the day he became a genin to the day Sasuke left the village, then Naruto and his friends nearly lost their life to the Yanin Shuf, not for the help of the Sand siblings and Lee. He retold his fight with Sasuke at the Valley of the End and his departure with Jiraiya for the 2.5 years training trip. Era scowled a little when she heard the part where Jiraiya tried to make Naruto read his Icha Paradise series, while his father just laughed it off while shaking his head. Naruto used to think about what it felt like to have a family that you could return to, a real family where you could share the most important moments with them. And he finally understood that feeling. Later, clang. Clang. The sound of a hammer hitting hot metal could be heard all over the forge of Hephaestus. "You work here?" Naruto asked as he picked up a celestial bronze sword from the basket full of weapons made in the same metal. It was 9 o'clock in the morning, and after saying goodbye to his parents who returned to their duty after their unofficial picnic, he began to wander around Olympus, and Hephaestus's forge was the first place he visited. "What is this metal anyway?" "Celestial bronze, the powerful metal used by the gods," Hephaestus explained. "It is mined by the Cyclops from Mount Olympus. The ore is shaped by tempering the metal in Mount Etna and cooling it in the river Lethe. I take that it's hard to make." Naruto swung the sword around. "Try stabbing yourself." Hephaestus returned to his work. "Because our parents gave birth to you in artificial mortal bodies, you're fully mortal, therefore it is useless against you." There wasn't a single drop of godly blood within Naruto, so the celestial bronze would pass through him harmlessly. Just like Hephaestus said, Naruto touched the sharp edge of the sword and he didn't feel anything at all. He could still feel the weight of the sword, and yet he didn't feel it cut him in the slightest. He then tried to do something more extreme. Putting his hand on the table, Naruto took out a celestial bronze knife and stabbed his hand with it. He waited for the pain, yet it never came. "Cool." Naruto grinned before turning to Hephaestus. "You need any help?" he asked when the god thrust the weapon into water to cool it down. "Don't worry, there is nothing I can't handle." "Line break." "What can I say?" Hephaestus chuckled as he sat down on his chair, using a rag to wipe away his sweat. "It wasn't every day that I have so many useful workers like this." He could use his machines, but it looked like Naruto and his clones worked more effectively. Clones could be seen everywhere around the large forge of Hephaestus, as they were doing everything they were assigned to. From sorting weapons to moving objects, with Naruto's superhuman strength his clones made work look easier than usual. Clang. "Careful," Hephaestus called out to the original, who was trying to make his very first weapon. "You won't be able to get it into shape if you hit it too lightly, so I should hit it with more strength." Naruto grinned and went into sage mode, raising the hammer above his head. "Fine." Then he slammed the hammer down the glowing hot sword. However, due to the strength he used behind that hammering was too great, it not only completely broke the incomplete sword in half, but also the table the anvil underneath used for crafting was sitting on as well. "Damn kid," Hephaestus roared in laughter as Naruto looked at the hammer while scratching the back of his head, unsure what just happened. "You really pack some serious strength there." Naruto chuckled and put the hammer down. It didn't take him long to realize that he wasn't good at crafting like his brother. But this was just the beginning of Naruto Uzumaki's new adventure in this new world. Thanks for watching guys, take care, bye.